What was it I said about Meghan Markle?
I am. Would you let me talk?
Ever that's been racist?
Are you going to let me talk, or are you just going to overtalk me?
Just answer the question. Stop answering different questions. What about the issue of race? And I mentioned that in the context of the Harry and Meghan ongoing debate, their war with the royal family, war against the monarchy, their specific constant referencing to the fact that they believe they were driven out of here because of racism in Britain. What do you make of that debate?
That's absolute fallacy.
And you're from a mixed race background yourself.
Correct. I'm from a mixed race background myself, and while we're discussing the leaders of the UK, although I do think they're doing a terrible job, it's kind of hard for Meghan to say that the UK is a racist country when the leader of the UK is darker skinned than her and the mayor of London is darker skinned than her. And I am a person who's probably darker skinned than her, and I've never experienced any kind of bigotry against myself besides the fact I'm a straight male. I'll get bigotry for that before I'll get bigotry for my skin color. I think it's just a cop-out, and her not wanting to be perspicacious and self-reflective enough to understand that she has attacked an age-old institution, and there are people who are very patriotic about that institution, and by attacking it and bringing a degree of distaste to it, there's going to be people who don't like her. And if you're a dislikable person, you can't just instantly stand up and say it's because of my skin color. It might be because of your actions and some of the things you've said.
I mean, I think there's probably no doubt she's had racism on social media because it's...
Who hasn't, Piers?
It's a cesspit.
You probably have.
Well, as I said just now, I've had death threats on social media and no one seemed to care very much.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably inarguable. My issue with what they've both been doing is if you're going to make allegations against an institution like the royal family and the monarchy, you've got to actually provide some evidence. You can't just spray gun this thing out there and say, well, somebody was racist.
Yeah, and airing dirty laundry is never going to be respected by the populace, and being a tattletale is never going to be respected by the populace. And I think the problem with the modern world we're living in is a lot of age-old traditions are being destroyed in real time. It doesn't matter what the tradition is. Most of them are being eroded. And something like the British royal family, which has been around for a very long time, is an age-old tradition. One of the things holding the UK together, one of the last things we have, to sit and detriment it and to sit and insult it and to give away secrets from inside of it and try and paint a negative image of it is going to upset a lot of people. And you have to be prepared for that backlash. You can't say I've done things that upset people, but it's nothing to do with what I've done. It's purely because of my skin color. Also, it's kind of ironic that she's doing that because she's not particularly dark-skinned. It's kind of funny to watch her sit and say, race.
I think the truth is, I don't know what... Look, you can say that. I can't. The reality of it is, I just don't know what the specifics of the racism she says she's had because we've not seen any evidence.
The universe is a funny place, Piers. If you're looking for something, you're going to find it, right? When I got cancelled, when they attacked me unfairly, lied about me across the entire mainstream media, deleted me from social media so I couldn't defend myself, and lied about me repeatedly, I could have stood up and said, it's because I'm brown. I didn't do that. I sat and said, okay, there's people who misunderstand my message. My message is a positive one. People misunderstand me. Let me self-reflect and understand that, yes, perhaps this said a long time ago was said in the wrong way. Perhaps this was misunderstood. Perhaps people don't understand this. I could have just copped out and could have just been refusing to self-reflect on any level and said, it's because I'm brown, that's why they did it. But that's not the mature way to be as an adult.
I want to turn to somebody else who may well have presidential ambitions and has been the subject of a lot of negativity. Meghan Markle, Prince Harry's wife, who does this podcast, Archewell podcast, or Archetypes it's called, in which she seems to perennially play the victim, the female victim of all outrages. And your name got dragged into this. Let's take a listen to what she said.
Raise your hand if you've ever been called crazy or hysterical. Or what about nuts, insane, out of your mind, completely irrational?
I don't think that men can control crazy women.
The use of these labels has been drilled into us from movies and TV, from friends and family, and even from random strangers. And the fact is, no one wants this label.
What did you make of that, Jordan, to be suddenly appearing on Meghan Markle's podcast as a villain
the first
who was
thing I make
calling women crazy?
Is that the first thing I make of it is that her voice drips with the same falsehood that the voice of Kamala Harris drips with. It's this sanctimonious, faux compassionate, talking down to her audience and trying to be sure that we're all really on the same compassionate page here, and we're all being victimized by terrible forces that are arrayed against us, and none of that's really fair. And it just grates on me, and I do believe, you played a bit of a clip from me when I was talking to Paglia, Camille Paglia, the literary critic, and I do believe that it is the case that it's very difficult to control female antisocial behavior, often of the type that's been pilloried as hysterical. And I think that there is no shortage of clinical evidence to support precisely that claim. It's very difficult for women to control female antisocial behavior, and females who are antisocial, that feminine pattern is reputation savaging under the guise of compassionate care. And it's extraordinarily destructive. And so I stand by my words.
Absolutely.
And I do think it scales online, because you can use an anonymous reputation savaging to unbelievably great effect online with absolutely no punishment for your sins, so to speak. And that is certainly one of the things that's contributing to so-called cancel culture. And there's no shortage of that coming from the female side. Now, men can engage in exactly the same strategies, and they do so online, and that's enabled. But it's definitely, see, with men, and I've said this before, and I do believe this to be the case, the ever-present threat of the potential for physical violence keeps men from doing that to each other most of the time in person. And that all disappears online, and that means that those who are prone to do such things, to use corrosive and denigrating derision, for example, and reputation savaging, can have a free hand at it, and that includes no shortage of women, and women are often, very, very often, the targets of that behavior from their own fellows, so to speak.
Ernest, thank you very much indeed for joining me. And now, I don't know much about you, other than you wrote a piece last week for Rolling Stone magazine saying cancel culture is good for democracy. So I'm going to come to that ludicrous premise in a minute. But I also remember you tweeting when I left Good Morning Britain, a series of tweets calling me a racist, including enjoying how folks keep getting Piers Morgan together for his racist tirades against Meghan Markle on Good Morning Britain. I was just curious, could you remember a single racist thing that I said about her, or have ever said about her?
Well, thank you for having me on, Piers. I was surprised when I found out I would be on your show.
We're an uncensored show, Ernest. We take all types on here.
Well, all types. Well, there you go. But I think really a lot of it just seemed to be biased. I think that you was really just harsh on the Duchess of Sussex, and I think there was a little bit of bias in the way that you had really gone after her.
Yeah, but Ernest, to be clear,
it was
I didn't ask you about that. I just said, what were the racist tirades? What racist thing have I ever said about Meghan Markle? I'm curious. You tweeted quite a few times that I was a racist. I'm just curious, what was the racism?
No, I said your remarks. I said your remarks was racist. I didn't say verbatim.
What were the remarks that were racist?
I think that it's biased. I think that you had a sense of bias of how you were speaking about her and how you was really being insensitive to her mental health and how you were denying a lot of her concerns.
Being biased or sceptical of some of her claims is not the same as being racist. What was the thing I said that was racist?
I never, hold on. Do you want the person of color to speak, or do you want to just talk over me?
Nothing to do with your skin colour, Ernest. Sorry, nothing to do with your skin colour. I don't care if you're black or white or anything else. I just want you to try and tell me, given you tweeted to your many followers repeatedly...
Are you going to let me talk,
by the way,
repeatedly,
you did this repeatedly. You have called me a racist repeatedly for racist things I've said about Meghan Markle.
I said you made racist remarks. I did not call you a racist.
To stand by what you tweeted. What was it I said about Meghan Markle?
I am. Would you let me talk?
Ever that's been racist?
You have recently chosen, lately in your career, for whatever reason, you went the road of basically baiting into a lot of the biased coverage of Meghan Markle.
Absolutely.
And a lot of it has been
this is the
racist
problem,
attacks. A lot of it
Ernest.
has been targeted towards her in a biased way. And come on, can you admit that the coverage around Meghan Markle has been racially biased? Can you admit that?
Absolutely not.
Not talking about your work,
no, I think
but
it's
in general.
I think it's another load of absolute hogwash. Nonsense.
So you're dismissing the role of race in all of this. You don't think none of this has a role
I'm
in
saying
any
the
of the coverage
British
she's been
media,
getting?
the British media has never been racist about Meghan Markle.
Okay, that's just a lie.
And
we're going to agree to disagree.
It's not
we're
a lie. It's
agree
a
to
fact.
disagree.
It's a fact.
No, it's not.
What is a lie?
No, it's not.
What is a lie, Ernest, is you telling people repeatedly, I'm a racist, and then you can't produce any evidence other than it's your feeling.
I said you made a racist tirade.
Yeah.
and you're offended. But here's the thing:
not
you're
offended.
blaming me for the criticism.
I'm not offended,
You said
Ernest.
you're
I'm
blaming
just
me as a
calling out-
high influential black
I'm
person,
calling
a black
out your
American,
lies, and by the
for
way,
why
it has
people are
nothing
questioning
again-
you. You're blaming me for your criticism.
It has nothing to do with your skin colour, Ernest. I don't care.
But you
I
literally
care
said
when
you said I was
lie.
a black influential person. You named my race. You said you're a black influential person, and that's why
Yes.
people thought that way.
I think when
so why
high
did you
profile,
bring my race into it?
I think when high-profile black people like you go public on Twitter.
Okay,
and-
high-profile
Sorry,
black people
go-
like me.
like
Go
you,
ahead.
go public on Twitter and call me a racist. People
Like you went public on Meghan Markle. Continue.
People believe it, and you know what? It's a
And people
sickening
believe what you said about
lie.
Meghan Markle, or no?
It's a lie.
Watched you yesterday and the day before. I watched you be gaslit by two ignorant black women. I actually felt quite sorry for you. So I want to say, welcome to the club, Piers Morgan. How does it feel to be gaslit when claiming something is racism? How does it feel? It's annoying, right? It's annoying.
Well, Tricia, here's your chance to respond. This was, of course, about our quite fiery debate in which I got very exercised about the fact that Meghan and Harry, for 2 years, led the world to believe that the palace had been racist about the skin colour of their baby. And then they decided to turn around and say, actually, we never meant that at all, which I thought was deplorable. You defended it, and that was Iman's verdict on your defence. I was basically getting gaslit. What's your response?
Not so much the gaslit bit, but I guess Iman and I would have to agree to disagree. I wouldn't call anybody ignorant just because they don't agree with my point of view. And I don't think it's helpful, especially when we're discussing something like racism, and you know, one black person calling another person ignorant because they don't agree. That I find sad. I'm saddened by that, and you know, so I'm not going to pick a fight with Iman about that because I've seen that happen. You know, I've worked in the media for 35 years. I know how that game's played. So that would be my only comment. She's entitled to her view. You're entitled to your view. I'm entitled to my view. But I actually think it's quite disgraceful to label someone ignorant purely because they don't agree with you.
So it's not acceptable to call someone ignorant, but you can call them disgraceful. Iman.
Well,
no, I said doing it is disgraceful.
Well, it's
Sorry,
the same thing,
don't
isn't
mix
it?
my...
It's the same thing. You just called it
No,
disgraceful.
I'm
so,
saying...
Iman, you're
No,
disgraceful
doing
for
it-
calling Tricia
Sorry.
ignorant.
I think it's...
Well, Tricia, we just
think
heard
it's
you. You just said
disgraceful.
she was disgraceful. So
Exactly.
let her answer the charge of being a
I didn't say she
disgrace.
was disgraceful.
OK, Iman, you're a disgrace for calling Tricia ignorant.
I think I'm awesome, personally, so I just want to throw that out there. Secondly, I never called you ignorant because you didn't agree with my opinion. I called you ignorant because you have a lack of knowledge. There's a clear difference, and it was never about a view. It's about just understanding facts. And when we talk about unconscious bias, that's based on feeling. That is a fact, Tricia. So it's not about me and you disagreeing as two black women. I'm going to call you ignorant in spite of your colour if you have a lack of knowledge. Simple as that.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, Tricia, come on, you've got to answer the charge. It was basically your ignorance as in lack of knowledge of the subject you were talking about.
If somebody decides that I'm ignorant, I'm not going to sit here and try to dissuade them otherwise. They've quite clearly made up their minds. If Iman wants to call me ignorant and thinks of me as ignorant, what have you, fine, go ahead.
Tricia, you did a lot of damage that day. You did a lot of damage, and I had to come along and fix it. Just like Harry did a lot of damage, and other people had to come along and fix it. Me, Shola, Kiande, we had to come along and fix your dirty work. So you know what? I don't have time for people like you when you come on national TV spewing garbage. And you're right. I'll actually add to your second point. I don't want to argue because I'm a bit more... In fact, I don't believe black women should come onto TV arguing, so I'll just leave it at that. I called you ignorant because of your lack of knowledge. It kind of ends there, basically.
I mean, Tricia, what I would say as the token white man in this debate is I would say this about what happened last week. I was surprised, actually, that you, with all your experience of broadcasting and journalism, you're a smart person. Even you, when you heard Harry basically gaslighting the world by saying, it was the media that said that this was racism. We didn't say that. And then you literally watch back exactly what they said to Oprah Winfrey, and they were blatantly accusing a senior member of the royal family of being racist about their unborn child's skin colour. I was surprised that you couldn't find it in yourself, notwithstanding your support for them, but as a black woman, to understand the damage that did in playing the race card as strongly as they did to Oprah Winfrey, and then expecting 2 years later we would all just sit back when they go, we didn't mean it as racism, and we'd all go, oh, that's all right then, after 2 years. I want to talk about two sets of people who are globally known and have had a lot said and written about them. The first, on the lighter end, Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. You have some quite strong views about these two.
They're my favorites.
Yeah, tell me about your views of these two.
I love them. They're my favorites. You know, reality television in America had kind of died down, and they've brought it back. It's very interesting to make a 3-part documentary on Netflix about how bad things are while living in a castle. I find the lack of self-awareness there to be very fun. I mean, they're very funny. They simulated some type of car chase in New York City that didn't really happen. There was a cab driver that was driving them around, said it did not happen. I know people in Los Angeles that they've texted and reached out to because they kind of want to hang out in these circles with celebrities. They got a big deal at Spotify. Spotify didn't make any money. Now the articles are coming out that Spotify lost a lot of money, giving them money to do all these things that they never ended up really doing, and nobody ended up listening after the first few episodes. So victimhood, it makes me laugh. And when someone is clearly not a victim, and I think living in a castle, being part of a royal family, would make you not a victim.
Yes.
And to me, to portray yourself as somebody who's having a rough go of it whilst living in a castle with royal protection and then leaving and flying to America to stay in the home of a big celebrity, and it's a beautiful home, they make me laugh. I mean, I like them. I hope they don't go away. I hope they keep doing this. I hope they keep behaving shamefully. It's great for the tabloids. It's great for us. We keep doing it. Keep simulating car chases, simulate terrorist attacks, whatever they want to do that keeps them in the news. I'm all for it.
Harry and Meghan, currently the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, famously gushed about their love of chickens in one of the more saccharine moments of their Oprah Winfrey sobfest. Well, the chickens are now coming home to roost for these two. The royal family kept a stoic silence as the poison darts rained down from their Californian pedestal. But King Charles is quietly and devastatingly taking charge now. We now know that he booted the couple out of their palatial Frogmore cottage just 24 hours after Harry's book Spare, or Spare Me as I call it, was published. We also now know that Harry and Meghan's popularity is cratered on both sides of the Atlantic, with polls showing even Prince Andrew is now more popular than they are in America, as well as now being offered the keys to their house. And we also now know that in America, where they've strained every sinew to become much-loved celebrities, they're actually viewed like this.
So let me start with you, Sam. You've lived a life with the royal family, you've had everything handed to you, but you say your life has been hard, and now you've written all about it in your new book, Wah. Yes, that's right, friend. You see, my wife and I are totally like, you should write a book because your family like stupid and then so are like journalists.
There's now a clear divide in the royal family, the workers and the shirkers, the heavy lifters and the grifters. The Prince and Princess of Wales saluted Welsh Guards yesterday at St David's Day Parade. Camilla, the Queen Consort, recovering from a recent bout of COVID, was promoting children's literature. King Charles is preparing to make state visits to Germany and France in his first royal tour as monarch. Meghan Markle, meanwhile, made a state visit to a coffee shop which sells superfood lattes inspired by holistic ingredients from around the world. And Prince Harry had another outing on US late-night television, the leftovers of a previous interview taped on his self-pity tour.
Harry, what is the best sandwich?
I would say a cheese and ham toastie with Dijon mustard on top.
And a toastie means grilled? Is that what that means? Yeah. Okay, there you go.
Unbelievable. That guy's sixth in line to the throne. On Saturday, he's at it again, flogging tickets to a digital seminar on family trauma. His trauma from his $13 million California mansion. You have to pay $33, by the way, to tune in online to see him banging on about his trauma again and what a victim he is and how it's all so beastly and unfair that he's making hundreds of millions fleecing his royal titles without doing any royal duty for it. But that's his level now, isn't it, for Harry? A gossiping gutter snipe, selling out his family to the highest bidders, a wannabe reality star. But that star is fading fast. Harry and Meghan think they can carry on having their royal cake and eating it. using those royal titles, like I say, while abusing the institution that afforded them those titles. And as usual, I'm afraid, they're wrong. And King Charles is right to draw the curtain on this ludicrous soap opera. On May the 6th, the King has his coronation. It will be one of the most important moments in modern British history. And the very last thing we need or want are the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, current titles, rocking up with their camera crews to distract attention and get more material for their next act of money-grabbing betrayal. Next week, 2,000 invitations will be sent out. In my view, it's time for Charles to be firm and make sure they're not on that list. Enjoy.